There's a lesson that every children learns, but no one puts on a timetable. Every educational curriculum teaches two things at once: what to learn and what kind of self feels safe while learning happens. We test the first one. We almost never name the second. I know this because I've been a student in 3 very different places. For 12 years, I was homeschooled. For almost half that time, my classroom was often not a room. It was the Gobi Desert, where the Silk Road used to run. It was in a bend of the Yellow River. It was in the museums, conversations, and quiet afternoons where no one was judging my reaction to what I had just seen. Then, less than a year ago, I walked into middle school for the very first time at one of Shenzhen's top international schools. That kind of school, where Monday is a test, Tuesday is a test, and Wednesday is a quiz that has not yet decided how serious it wants to be yet. I'm not here to say which way of learning is right. I don't believe there is one. I'm here because in less than 12 months, I watched the same child, me, grow more curious in one environment, more careful in another, and more performative in a third. This is not just a theory I read. This is a change I felt from the inside. Moving between the three made me see something I would never have if I had stayed in one of them alone. Because while every environment was teaching me subjects, every environment was also teaching me something else. Quietly, consistently, without a syllabus. It was teaching me how to feel about myself while learning. And that second lesson may shape a child more deeply than the first one ever will. Because a child can look successful on the outside and still be quietly disappearing on the inside. This is not something only I have felt. Researchers have been pointing towards it for years. Carl Dweck, psychologist, found that when students are praised for being quote-unquote smart, they often become more fragile under difficulty. When praised for the effort, they often become more resilient. A large meta-analysis of over 200 school programs found that when schools build social and emotional learning alongside academics, students' academic achievements rises by about 11 percentile points. The OECD's PSA research also points the same way. Students who feel safer and more connected at school often report stronger belonging and lower anxiety. But research papers do not always reach people who actually live inside those classrooms. So I want to begin with one small moment from my own life. A few weeks ago, my name was hung up in a school hallway wall because of my essay. On the outside, it looked like something every student is supposed to want. My name on the wall, my work chosen, a simple piece of recognition. But something strange happened inside of me. I did not feel proud at first. I felt watchful. I started wondering how my classmates were reading it, whether I had taken a space that someone else deserved, whether I have to stay that good in order to stay that visible. Then I noticed something even stranger. I wasn't reading my own essay anymore. I was reading the room around it. What made it so complicated was not praise in itself. It's what praise could do to the room around me. How quickly recognition can become distance, comparison, or quiet resentment among classmates. What if the feeling I had in the hallway was not a private overreaction? What if it's in the curriculum itself? A curriculum made not of lessons, but of signals. I don't want this talk to stay inside only my own story. So over the past weeks, I started something very small, a listening project. I asked students from grade 7 to grade 12 a few anonymous questions about praise, belonging, being seen, and being ignored. 119 students responded. That number gave me a map. More than half said that they did not feel praise as just simple encouragement. Many felt pressure, or pressure mixed in with the motivation. And almost 2/3 said that they sometimes or often avoided raising their hands because they were afraid of comparison or of being wrong. And almost half of these students said that in school, my grades were okay, but I just don't feel like myself. Those sentences give me a voice, and those students help you recognize the 4 signals. The first one is praise. Praise is never only about a student being praised. It's also information for everyone else in the room. Who is, let's say, the good one? What kind of answer gets visibility? What kind of student this room rewards? Students wrote, praise is a sweet burden. I'm afraid that if I do badly the next time, that light will disappear. Another student wrote, adults' praise feels like putting on a label. It sticks on easily, but when you tear it off, it takes skin with it. If praise is really working, the child should feel freer afterwards, right? But sometimes praise can do the exact opposite. It can make a child more careful. Now, can I ask you guys something very small? Don't raise your hand, just think for a second. Have you ever been praised? And instead of feeling only happy, you suddenly felt watched. Like you somehow have to keep being that version of yourself. That feeling is very easy to hide, but it matters. Because sometimes praise does not only tell a child, you did well. It also whispers, now, don't you dare fail. The second signal is comparison. Who is always the example? Who is corrected in front of others? Who is quietly ranked, sorted, or measured? Those information tell a student where they stand in a room, often even before they understand the subject in itself. Students wrote, comparison makes you feel like a damaged product. Learning doesn't even feel like it's for me anymore. Feels like it's only for beating somebody else. In China, so many of us grew up hearing about 别人家的孩子, the other family's child. The child who is always better. The child who becomes your invisible rival. And once a child feels constantly compared, learning shifts. It stops being about discovery and it starts being about position. It stops being about curiosity and it starts being about caution. Expression quietly turns into editing and self-motivation becomes weaker because the child is no longer going towards curiosity. She's moving away from shame. The third signal is belonging. A child who feels safe enough to belong will usually risk more. Ask, try, fail, speak again anyway. A child who feels that dependence is depend on the performance itself. They often become quieter long before any adult notices. Students wrote, being ignored is normal. I've trained myself into invisibility. A friend of mine wrote, I raised my arm into my hand and my whole body hurt. The teacher's eyes always passed over my head. The fourth signal is risk signal. What does it cost to be wrong in this room? To not know yet, to raise your hand and fail in public. And if that risk is too high, students stop trying. And if students stop trying, they're no longer fully learning. They're managing exposure. A student wrote quite simply, we're all adapting to the rules of this environment. That line actually frightened me because it sounded so normal. Once a child spends long enough trying to adapt to this room, she may forget what she was like before the room taught her how to survive. 4 signals: praise, belonging, comparison, and risk. None of them appear on a report card. All of them being taught. And these signals do not stay only inside schools. What children learn about praise, they take into friendships. What they learn about comparison, they take into teams, into group chats, into workplaces. And what they learn about risk and belonging, they will take into every room they will ever enter. That's why many adults don't lose their curiosity suddenly. They lose it slowly, through years of emotional signals that taught them long ago that being safe is better than being real. The operating system a child carries at 12 may become the working mechanism a person has at 30. So, what can change? Not everything, not overnight. Maybe we can start with the smaller moments. If you're a teacher, the next time you praise a student, try praising the movement of their thinking. Not, you're so smart, but you noticed something most people miss. Or, I can see how your idea changed for the better from that first attempt. These signals do not trap a student inside a label. It points to growth. And if you're a parent, the next time your child comes home from school, ask one more question. Not only rhetorical, how did you do? Ask, how did that environment make you feel about yourself today? That line tells a child that their inner experience matters as much as their output. And if you're a student, many of you here, try not to confuse adapting to your room with becoming yourself. Those are not the same things. Adaptation is survival. Becoming yourself is something else entirely. At the beginning, I told you guys about my name on the wall, how it looked like a simple piece of recognition. But something more complicated was happening inside of it. I was not only being seen, I was learning how it feels like to be seen. And that second lesson is what I want us to notice. Because every school, every home, every educational environment teaches two things at once. So you learn, and what kind of self feels safe while learning happens. The first one we measure. The second one shapes the person that walks out of that building. Because schools does not only teach us subjects, it teaches us how to exist under judgment. And that life continues long after the bell rings.